It is August 23rd, 2023. We're in Allentown, Pennsylvania, interviewing Mr. Eli Rauzon about his life and his experiences during World War II. So we'd like to invite him to sign our book if he would. So you got on your right side there at the top, because that side's pretty full.
Right over here.
Yeah. So if you could do that. And put your, can you put, you're on a bunch of different ships, I know. Put the one that you were on the most during the war. I think it was that. And if you want to put some of the others, that would be great as well.
Will you put the date on?
Well, put the date at the end, yeah. And put as many as those ships on there that you want. And then put today's date, if you would. Yeah, some handwriting's better than others. Like you look at them and you can sometimes tell, oh, you must have gone to Catholic school because your handwriting is legible, right? What do you, yeah, you got it, 23 August.
Even you forgot it.
Okay.
Put the three of them there.
Okay, that's great. Let me get a close-up shot of you. I'm going to do it. It'll be with flash and without, because sometimes without is better. You want to just look this way. Think about the fact that you're 85, not 100. Okay, actually, the one without the flash is better. Sometimes that's the way it works. So, okay. So at this point, if you just want to start with your full name and then where you were born, and when, and go on from there. Go ahead. If you're done with the book, I can take the book out of the way if you want. There we go. Thank you. Whoop, 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 whoop. Here. There you go. Got it. Okay, thanks.
No date on there, too.
Okay, so go ahead and tell us. Oh yeah, you didn't put the date. You want me to put the date for you?
Yeah, might as well, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so go ahead and tell us your full name and where you were born and when, and then something about your parents.
Well, my name is Eli Rauzon. I was born in Talmadge, Ohio. Talmadge Township, Ohio, which is now part of Akron, Ohio. My daddy came to...
Oh, when's your birthday?
My birthday is May the 19th. 1923.
Okay, well, happy 100th, belatedly.
Yeah.
So tell me about your parents, because off camera you mentioned that they came, was it both parents or just your dad who came from?
Well, my dad was born in Europe, and he came to the United States in 1910.
He was from Croatia, correct?
He's from Croatia,
okay.
And also his brother was here before him, and he went back to get some more of the family and bring them over to the United States. In the meantime, he was caught in World War I in Europe. But my dad stayed here.
Now, what was your father's name?
Marco.
Okay.
His picture's right on the wall there.
Okay. And what about your mother? What was her name?
My mother was Eva, and she also came from Europe, from Serbia.
Okay.
And my dad came here at that time. We lived in East Akron, and he bought a piece of land in the suburbs along to build a home. And in building his home, was a real country. Everybody in the community was building homes, and everybody in the community was trying to scrub a way of life. As a child, I recall living in the country. We had no water. We had a well in the backyard. We had no electricity. We had a kerosene light. You got up in the morning when it was daylight, and you went to bed when it got dark.
Okay.
And we didn't have toilets, indoor toilets. We had outdoor toilets.
Okay.
And that's usually about 30 feet away from the house.
Okay. So if it was bad weather or really cold, it was a it was it was
So
a trip.
that was a way of life.
Now, what did your dad do for a living?
My dad at that time, the immigrants in them, they had always got the dirty jobs. He worked for Goodyear in a factory for a while. He also worked in the foundries.
Okay.
In them days, Akron, Ohio was the center of the rubber industry. And the factories had a lot of work in the foundries, making tire molds. In them days, rubber came from Southeast Asia, and it was white. And we mixed it with lamb black to make black tires. And that was usually immigrants had those dirty jobs, working in the foundries, making tire molds. It's hard work, dirty work.
Now, did you have any brothers or sisters?
I had a family of 7.
Wow.
I had 4 sisters, and I had a brother.
So how were you in that order of things?
I was I would say the 4th one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Now, are any of your siblings still around?
no, I don't have any family members. I was the oldest one in the family. My sister died about 10 years ago. She was a little older than me, but she only lived to be 94.
Okay.
My father died at the young age in his 60s. Not because he wasn't healthy, but in them days when you worked in a factory, you had no protection. You worked in a foundry, you breathed all of the dust and so forth, and you had no protection for your breathing and so forth. My mother also works at home as a mother housewife, but she also had a job as she grew older as a janitorial, cleaning offices.
Okay. Now, well, first of all, let's talk about school. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What were your favorite subjects?
Well, as a child, I had to walk about a mile to get a bus, and from the bus in Akron, we went to the Talmadge grade school, which was in them days a one-room school, and it was in the country, and you had no bathroom facilities. It was the same, very, very primitive in them days, and you used outdoor bathrooms and so forth, and in them days they give you a little jar of milk for your recreation. You pay 2 cents for it or whatever it is, and you didn't have to worry about someone kidnapping you.
Okay, yeah.
You got on a bus and went home, and from home the bus would drop you off, and then you walked a mile back to your house.
Now, what were your favorite subjects?
Well, I really can't tell you what my favorite subjects were, but eventually they built a school closer to where we lived, and I was a student in there, but I try to be a good student in everything.
Okay.
And in them days, discipline was administered by the school teachers, and you never really had a problem. You did what they told you to do, and you did it happily. And you tried to enjoy school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you were in school, either in grade school or middle school, junior high school, did you have any sports that you liked to do?
Well, as a child in grade school, in them days you didn't have a hell of a lot of opportunities for real sports. However, we did, us who could mustered up enough money to get a pair of roller skates. We used to roller skate in front of the school because they had a good blacktop.
Okay.
And in days you had your outdoor activities for grade school were limited.
Okay.
Everything was being built, but now in them days by the WPA, they were modernizing the schools, yards, and so forth. So they had no other activities.
Now, when the Depression hit, and of course, you know, the big market crash is October 29, but we didn't feel the brunt of the Depression until the early 30s. How did that affect your family, and how did that affect you?
Well, during the Depression years, they had food giveaways. They didn't give you edible food. You had to cook your food. For example, during the Depression, you got lard, you got beans, dried beans, you got flour, you got cornmeal, you got 5 of the basics, so you can go home and cook it,
Okay.
make your own biscuits and so forth. So that's how that worked out.
Did you have to, did you or any of your siblings have to go to work to help supplement the family income, or did your dad keep his job throughout the...
I wouldn't say that the children and my sisters, older sisters, you usually try to get a job is working in someone's house, is a cleaning lady or cleaning so forth, or assisting the family at home. But you had no opportunity to go ahead and earn anything except if you was scrounge the junk and try to sell it at the Salvage or one of these things.
Okay.
As I grew up, I had baked a paper route, so I made a little bit of money there, and I also was very cognizant of what the Salvage would buy.
Okay.
Try to make a few cents.
Sure.
And in them days, being a paper boy, it wasn't a very productive financially. Newspaper was only about 3 cents or 4 cents, so your profits were limited.
Yeah, I guess. So did you, if you had any free time between school and your job, what would you do? I mean, did you?
Well, in the summertime, we did have something to do for older children. We used to go to the local farms when you had the early springtime, and you'd be picking strawberries, or you'd picking raspberries, or doing some kind of work around a farm.
Okay.
And then when planting season come up, you could work on the farm, cutting the weeds out of a cornfield or so forth. You didn't have the pesticides to do it, so that was some work. However, the farmers would get their produce ready to go to the market, let's say on Tuesday or Saturdays. So you had to work pretty hard during the day. And then the days you put picking strawberries and raspberries, you had to be a pretty good picker to make any money out of it. But it's something you could get and do your own purchasing.
Did you get any free samples while you were picking strawberries or raspberries?
That's what they didn't encourage.
Oh, they did not
They
encourage.
didn't encourage it.
Okay.
But what used to irritate me is you got these carriers with one wooden quartz. So it used to fill those things real high. So when you took it in and get your chip for how many things you carried, they take one of those excess on the 4 you had and make another one.
Uh-huh.
So they sort of cheated you a little bit.
Okay, well, nothing new about that, right? So, so you lived in the countryside. Your dad still was able to work.
Yeah.
For what was it, Goodyear, or what was the company that he was?
Well, he worked for a foundry. I don't recall what it was.
Okay. But he kept his job throughout the Depression.
Well, he changed jobs. He eventually wound up working for railroads. In them days, everything came by train. So he worked at the East Akron Erie Railroad Terminal. Everything came in by train. Cars came in by train. Material came in by train. And those were all unloaded and locally distributed.
Okay. So he had a good job. I mean, it was pretty safe.
Yes, he had a good job.
Working for the railroad.
Yeah, he retired from Erie Railroad at his later age. Yeah.
So now, you said you didn't have electricity at home, so you would not have had a radio, I guess, right? Or did you?
We had a radio, but it's battery operated early on.
Okay.
However, the real change came whenever Roosevelt was elected, because he had the Electrical Rurification Act passed.
Right, right. You had the Tennessee Valley Authority thing. Yeah, yeah.
Civilian Conservation Corps passed. He had Works Progress Administration passed,
Right.
and those things made things boom. So I did see electricity come in.
Okay.
And I'd also seen a change. Electricity in them days was that you had one outlet in the house, and you'd have to get it. The next day you had an extension all over the barnyards.
Well, so that was
Lights
good.
up.
So I guess your family was a Roosevelt family, right? You liked the president.
Yeah, the neighborhood I lived in was at them days. Everybody lived in the country. Everybody was suffering. They all were in the same boat. So in them days, families were much larger than they are today. And you had to do the best you can with what you had.
Right.
And we didn't complain about everything because we was happy to be here. We knew someday that we'd have a house, and that eventually is what happened. So you just don't build and walk into it. And everything had to be done by hand. You didn't have mechanized machinery for digging basements like you do today. And everything was community oriented. You got your neighbors to help you, and you helped them.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
Something missing today. Yeah. Now, the reason I was asking about the radio, and I wanted to ask about some other things that may seem strange, but did you get a newspaper while you were?
I was a
you were a newspaper
boy for the Akron Beacon Journal for a while, yeah.
And did you ever go to those Saturday matinees and see, you know, they usually have cartoons, previews?
We used to do that, yeah, and for 10 cents you get in and see the matinees. And we also got, sometimes you got a dish to go with it, some
Okay.
kind of a gift.
Right.
And even sometimes maybe you got a little piglet,
Yeah.
take it home.
Now,
Right.
the reason I'm asking about the movies is that usually, in addition to like a serial, you know, an ongoing, you know, serial kind of thing like a soap opera, cartoons, previews, and the main feature, they often had movie tone newsreels, you know, that would they'd let you know.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. So the reason I'm asking about the newspaper and the radio and the newsreels is, were you aware, when we get into the late 1930s, so at that point you're 15, 16 years old, something in that area, before the U.S. got into the war, were you aware of what was going on in Europe and the Far East?
I was aware of it because I was a paper boy, and I used to read the headlines, and I'm aware of the blitz we had,
Okay,
and so forth.
okay.
And I also, as a paper boy, I used to meet several of the World War I veterans
Oh, yeah.
who were coughing and so forth and so on, and spitting up blood.
Probably from mustard gas attacks.
Yeah,
or
from
what?
mustard gas.
Yeah.
And I would talk to them, and I mentioned going into the military service when I was old enough to talk about it. They said, please don't go into the Army, because they all feared the gas.
Right, okay.
So that's one reason why I walked into the Navy.
Oh, okay.
And
I was going to ask you about that because you're from the middle of the country.
Yeah.
You know, what was the incentive for the Navy?
Well, I knew one of the boys in the neighborhood was in the Navy.
Okay, ahead of you.
Yeah, ahead of me. Yeah.
So he would talk about it
Yeah.
and everything. Okay.
And
So the main reason for going in the Navy was fear of a gas attack from the Army, as in World
Yeah.
War One.
Well, yeah, and also they talked about it in them days, a trade. So in high school, I took the electrical and electronic course. Consequently, when I went into the Navy, originally I was a deckhand, but being experienced in the electrical field, when we took examinations for the different fields, I, as a deckhand, passed the electrical exam.
Okay.
The guys who were working as an electrician failed it, so they
Well.
worked as deck.
Okay. Okay. So a little role reversal there.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when so you said you went in the Navy in January '41, so
Yeah, that's
almost a year before Pearl Harbor.
That's correct, yeah.
So, where were you? What prompted you to want to go in the Navy at that point, as opposed to whatever else you were doing? What was?
Well, we had several things going on. We had the at that time, if I remember correctly, we had this goodbye dear, I'll be back in a year, latter part of the service.
Okay.
And those men were going into the draft or the CCC or something else, which was really, we probably didn't know about it, preparation for a military build-up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And also I thought that, well, the Navy, since I'm going to be an electrician, would be a good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
So did you, I mean, and of course with going into the service, you were guaranteed a salary, three
Well,
meals
that's
a
right.
day, a bunk, right, all that.
it all sounds so real good, but when you look at $21 a month, you divide that up to how many hours
Yeah,
we made,
Yeah.
we were working for peanuts.
yeah, yeah. But you knew you were gonna get that $21,
That's
right?
yeah. And,
So-
you had to save a few dollars with it.
So did you tend to send money home, some money home to your family?
Well, not when I was a private, no.
Okay, okay.
Or a seaman.
So now where did you, when you went into the Navy, where were you inducted? Where did you go for your physicals and all of that?
When I went into the Navy, most of the boys in Akron, Cleveland area were going to Great Lakes. However, they sent me to Norfolk, Virginia. And I was a participant in the recruit down there, and I had a very good chief in charge of our company. He respected everybody and treated us royally, treated us like their son. And that was a good place to start life, because it's not a place where you break a man's morale down. He worked with every boy there as if on equal terms, and he gained them respect. I still have a picture of that.
Okay. Do you remember his name?
I don't remember his name, but I got a picture of the affair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so what was your basic training like? I mean, in addition, obviously, you're obviously going to go into be an
Well, the
electrician.
basic training was we had classes. We had boat exercises. We had to get the blue jackets manuals and study certain things, and we had the drills and so forth, field drills, and many of us you study the semaphore and so forth.
Right.
So, and it kept you busy.
I've interviewed some Navy guys, and I was surprised to hear this, who didn't know how to swim. And
Well, everybody had to learn how to swim.
Okay.
And I remember an Indian boy who was in our company, never did learn to swim, was afraid of water, and I don't remember him graduating with us. But we lived in the country. We had places to swim. We had lakes to northern.
So you knew how to swim then before you were in the Navy?
I had had to swim before, yeah.
Okay.
So I had no problem. And we learned how to swim underwater, so many feet before you can go ahead and graduate. And the reason for that is if you was in the fire in the water, you had to swim underwater and so forth. But we had good exercises there. We had field exercises and so forth.
Okay.
And I had a little bit of musical training. So in basic training, I was a drummer.
Oh.
And also part of the bugle corps. So we would study that, work on our marching and so forth. And that way we would get the exercise, the troops, you know, marching and
Yeah.
the timing
Yeah.
and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And that way on Saturday, the big band would take over. So that all the troops were all.
Okay. Now, when you were were you in Norfolk then a fairly long time before you?
I was there for about 3 months. Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever get what do they call it when you're already serving on shore? Is it furlough or Liberty is really when you come off a ship, right? When you
Yeah,
get
that's correct. Yeah.
okay. So what kind of when you got time off? What would you do?
In Norfolk, Virginia, you didn't have a hell of a lot of time off. Yeah.
Okay.
But you could go to town. And in them days, I think that maybe you didn't have the prestige as you have nowadays. Because some places along the line, sailors are sailors.
Right.
I don't want to emphasize that too much, but it was a little different service.
Yeah. So you were in Norfolk then for about 3 months, and then where did they station you after that? Where did they send you after?
Well, I went Well, we were in Norfolk.
Okay.
Where you go to a firing range, we have the practice with a rifle, 30-06 rifle, and I was with a bunch of city boys. And they all talked about, when we get to the firing range, we're going to show you guys how to shoot. The city boys were good talkers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the country boys were raised in the country, so many of us already knew how to use a rifle.
Sure.
We used to go out and hunt rabbits and pheasants and so forth. It's part of our meal. That's what our hunting was concerned. So when we leave the firing range, the city boys kept their mouths shut because the country boys made all the bullseye and didn't even hit the target.
Oh well. Did you have good buddies while you were? Did you have friends when you were guys you would regularly do things with when you weren't on duty?
I don't recall that.
Okay.
No, they kept you pretty darn busy.
Okay.
You know, you worked as a team more than anything. You know,
Okay.
learn the seamanship and learn things. But it's just one of the things that you have so many things to learn. You know, if you want to.
Now, did they have a lot of? Was there a lot of emphasis on tying different kinds of knots using
There were.
ropes? You know, tying knots with ropes and stuff.
Knots was a way that you had to depend on knots because they support you. So you how to tie all the knots. I still know how to tie them
Okay.
because they teach you how to all the knots. And if you're on the ship, you have to know how to do that,
Right.
especially if you're a deckhand. Yeah. But a basic training is a long affair, but it does one thing. It builds your morale up. It makes you stronger, especially some of the people weren't as strong as it used to be. And it teaches you how to take care of your personal things, take care of your clothing. It's an all-around thing. It redoes a person.
Now, what were your accommodations like? Were you in barracks or tents or?
You were in. So some people actually were in hammocks, but you had a bunk. You know?
Okay.
You had a bunk.
Okay.
You had your canvas bunk, and you had a thin mattress cover on it, and everything you owned was put into a canvas bag. It was called a sea bag. Mm-hmm. And when you got transferred, you took all your possessions with you. But they do practice you for, in them days you had to keep your clothes clean, and you didn't have any clothes to clean. And we used to roll our clothes up so we'd get more in a bag. And
they'd be less wrinkled, probably,
yeah.
too. Now, what was the food like in Norfolk? Was it good? Do you remember?
Well, the food was good, yes. And they served a nourishing food, and they served beans. They served everything else. It's a good menu.
Okay.
Served. Yeah.
Now, were you able to, I assume, write home and also get letters?
Yeah, you could write home personal things, yes. And when you first go in there, you sort of feel depressed because you're isolated from your own thing, but you get over that as you find out you're on your own.
Right. So now, after 3 months in Norfolk, where did you go? Where did they send you?
After 3 months in the, you were assigned to a ship.
Okay.
I was assigned to a destroyer, USS Overton. I think it was set to be to. I even forget where it was, out of Philadelphia or someplace.
Now, was that a relatively new ship, or was it one of those old four-stackers?
It was a four-piper destroyer.
Okay, so World War I era.
And we used to run mail from Washington, D.C. to Argentia, Newfoundland.
Oh, okay.
And I remember I was in Philadelphia and I had a appendicitis attack, so they took me off of that ship. And my ship went back, and they did not reassign me to the same ship, since I was in a hospital, Philadelphia Naval Hospital, for, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks.
So did they take your appendix out then, or not?
You know what? They didn't do that.
Huh.
And I still have my appendix. It just happened. I had another emergency ahead of me. So they had me laying in the hall. They waiting for appendicitis. And guess what? The doctor said, well, go back to the room and see how you feel tomorrow and so forth and so on. After a couple of days, I feel pretty good. Never had my appendix removed.
Huh.
This very day.
Huh. Okay.
But in the meantime, it delayed my career was somewhat delayed. But in the end, the delay was advantageous to my career because that put me into an assignment to this submarine repair ship in New London, Connecticut.
Okay.
But it was still in a Navy yard in New York. So consequently, I went there and worked on the ship for several months before we could get it seaworthy and put it in commission.
And so you were a plank owner.
I was a plank owner on USS Griffin, yeah.
And so what was the number on that one, USS?
AS-13.
Okay.
Yeah, USS Griffin. It was one of the early submarine tenders, and it was a Mormon-Penn ship. It was really a cargo ship.
So had they sort of partway through building it decided they were going to repurpose it? I mean,
It was preempted, but it had a lot of space on it, cargo space, a lot of booms, the things that you need for hauling cargo and everything else, where you could have plenty of shop space and everything else. So that was a very good assignment.
So you're going to be on that ship then throughout the rest of the war?
I was on that ship for the rest of the war.
Okay. So where did you go then? I mean, once the Griffin you're assigned.
First place we went was New London, Connecticut. So it's just a submarine repair ship. So the first place we go is New London. And as you know, they had a submarine base in New London that trains submariners, and that they built submarines,
and they still do.
It's still do today.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
So that was my introduction.
Now, what kind of at that point? We're still not in the war yet. So, what kind of submarines are you guys working with? Are you not?
Well, the squadron that we had in New London was old S-boats.
Okay.
And we had 6 of them. So we used to go out and maneuver with those things and so forth. Now, when the war started in December 7th, the squadron that we had in New London, Connecticut, was ordered to go and reinforce the Philippine forces. So that's when we left the East Coast and went to at that time you had a lot of submarine warfare lures because the Germans were very, very productive in their submarines and so forth. And that took us through the Panama Canal.
Okay. And
going to Australia, we had to go the zigzag course.
Now, were you in a convoy or by yourself?
Yeah, we escorted the small subs.
Okay.
In our ship.
So yeah, the subs on the surface can't go very fast, so it's going to take you a while.
Yeah, you're only going 6 or 8 knots.
So did you stop anywhere along the way between the Panama Canal and Australia?
Well, we left the East Coast and we stopped in Panama Canal, both on the northern side and also on the Pacific side.
Okay. Were you able to get off and look around?
Well, we had Liberty there, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
anything memorable occurred during Liberty?
They're not really. They're not with the submarine people.
Okay. So those S-boats, I'm sort of going off thing. How big were they? What kind of crew would they have? And
I can't give you the exact amount of money, crew size.
But they're certainly going to be smaller than the later Gato classes.
They're very, very small, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very small.
I remember years ago reading a book, I can't remember the title of it, but it was about the Squalus, one of the ships, I'm sure you probably read about it too in the 30s, that went down, and in those days, if a crew went down with a boat, you couldn't save them.
Yeah.
And then this guy, I think his name is Sweet Momsen, I'm sure you've read about him, and he came up with this thing, he said, I think we can rescue these guys.
They had like a bell.
Yeah. I think it's called the Momsen Bell, isn't it?
Yeah. So what happens is the hatch on a submarine were flat, so the bell was supposed to go over that.
And then lock onto it.
Then you had a double airlock there.
Mm-hmm.
So you got someone out there to go into the bell. Mm-hmm. Make sure they close the door behind you.
Yeah, sure.
You can bring you out.
Wow.
But see, all this is in theory.
Right.
Now, if you land it straight, you're okay. But if you land on the side, it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. If you land at any kind of an angle.
So topography means a lot.
Sure, I would guess, yeah.
And the depth of the water means a lot.
Oh, sure, yeah. Wow. So how long does it take you to get to Australia? And like I said, did you stop anywhere along the way?
We stopped, yes, it took us a long time, yeah.
Do you remember where you stopped off by any chance?
Well, I think we stopped off at, I don't remember exactly where it was.
Did you go to Pearl Harbor or not?
No, we went to Australia first.
Okay, so you didn't stop at all. You went direct.
No, we stopped. Yeah, we stopped going over. We had to stop. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, so I'm just very curious about your crossing over, which must have taken weeks.
Well, the itinerary I had on that.
Okay, we'll look at that. What were accommodations? I must have been boring on that boat. I mean, what would you do?
I can't speak for the people on the submarines.
Yeah, but I mean, on your
On
tender.
the ship I was on,
Yeah.
we had fairly good accommodations, bunks, no air conditioning.
Yeah.
Going through the Panama Canal, and that was it. Our food was relatively good, but you had to be, in them days, you had to carry a lot of produce to go that far.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
How did you guys? Because I'm sort of, this is a leading question because I've talked to a lot of Marines who took long ship rides to the Pacific, and I was asking about how they did their laundry, and I was just curious about how you guys did your laundry on board these.
but the funny thing you ask it, on a destroyer we used to have cold water,
Mm-hmm.
and it had a steam pipe coming out of the boiler room, and that's how you heated your water.
Okay.
And they gave you a bucket, and the bucket you used for washing your clothes and washing your body.
Okay. So there are no showers.
Water was very critical.
Oh, yeah, I guess. Now, did you guys have a desalinization thing on your ship?
You absolutely. You could carry so much fresh water, but we also had to make water.
Right.
The ships were run by steam, and you need steam to run the turbines.
Yeah, and it can't be salt water, I assume, right? It'll screw up the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But down on submarines, they're different. They have to run by batteries when they're submerged. And when they're surface, they have a battery, which is converted to a motor.
And that recharges when
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
on the surface.
You're charging batteries as well as.
No, the reason I was asking about the laundry, especially on your long crossing, some of the Marines I talked to said, well, what we did, we'd take ropes and tie our dungarees or whatever, and tie one end of the rope on the back of the ship and just throw them.
I've seen that done, yes.
Okay.
But it's not really the.
Oh yeah, but you guys didn't have to do it.
We had a laundry on a ship.
Oh wow,
On
okay.
a river, we had a ship, yeah. But you're still responsible for the cleanliness of your own laundry.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. No, it was funny to hear that story again and again, and they said they didn't get along with the Navy boys. They said because the Navy boys for fun would come along and cut the ropes, and there would go their clothes, right? So,
But even at that, on the ship itself, I recall the ship stopping, and the men jumping off the ship and having a little bit of bathing there, swim,
yeah,
and they launched a little boat for patrol, and you couldn't go very far away from the ship. Of course, you had to be very sure you could swim too.
right, right.
The closest beach is down 3 miles down.
Right, right, and probably shark lookout as well, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so you, how long does that crossing then take you from the canal to? I assume you're headed somewhere.
I'd say it took about maybe 3 weeks.
Wow.
At least.
Now, where did you land in Australia?
Well, we was out in the fringe of the Coral Sea battle
Oh,
at that time.
okay.
In other words, about that same time frame.
So that's going to be May '42.
Yeah.
So were you involved in that at all?
Well, I'm not sure where our ship was, but I know we went to Brisbane, Australia at that time.
Okay.
And I do recall there was some casualty from the Coral Sea battle, and not for us, but other ships.
But you saw them.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we did, the submarine ship that I was on, I think we dismissed that.
Okay. Okay.
But anyway, we did never get to the Philippines.
Yeah,
We went to Brisbane, we took the submarines with us to Brisbane, Australia.
and probably the Philippines fell before but had fallen before you got there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we at that time, MacArthur was in the process of moving out of the Philippines.
Right.
Yeah. So he has already had left, and he promised to return, but it was a while before he could get there.
Sure. And of course, there's a big controversy about that anyway. So, so you're in Brisbane. How long are you? What did you think of Australia? What did you think of?
Well, to me, it's a great country. We had a wonderful place. We had the we respond to air raids and so forth, and the whole life changed. Now we had to take care of submarine repair things, and so forth. Plus, you had to get your own run on the ship itself.
Yeah. To take care of your boat as well as.
That's right. So we were one of the early submarine repair ships that went in there, and I recall they had air raids. We had to run from the ship to the park for protection and so forth. So Australia was being under attack at that
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of action in that area. For invasion was in the process of being planned and everything else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, how long were you in Brisbane altogether?
Well, it seemed like we were there for quite a while, and I'm not sure where we went. I think we left there and went someplace else, came back.
Okay.
But eventually we wound up in Hawaii.
Oh. Okay.
For some work. Yeah.
Okay. So, how long were you in Australia altogether before you make this trip back to Hawaii?
It's hard for me to say.
Okay. Now, what were the submarines you were repairing? Were they all the old S boats, or were you getting any newer models that you were working on?
At that time, they were still the old S boats, yeah.
Okay.
Early in this game. And I think later on, they're already building boats all over the United States here at that time.
Okay. Now, did you ever have any conversations with any of these guys, crew members of the S boats? Did you ever talk to them?
Well, I was always in communication with them at that time.
Okay, but that was official, right? Like,
Yeah.
but did you ever have any conversations with any of the crew, just sort of that wasn't necessarily related to work? Well, you know, like what was your experience on the last submarine patrol you went on, that kind of thing? Did you ever have those kind of conversations?
I don't remember in detail. Yeah.
Okay. So when you would communicate with, who was your counterpart on the S boat? You must have had a designated.
Well, first of all, you had on the boats themselves, the primary thing is to get the propulsion system is always right. So you have to have the batteries charged up. So a lot of times when they came in, we would go ahead and charge the main batteries, and a lot of being a direct current on the boats themselves, you get a lot of grounds, and if they had some motors or something, they'll get grounded, they would remove them and take them to the electric shop and get them worked on.
Okay.
And at that time, the patrols were relatively short. So
Yeah, I guess if they, you know, if they're that small and
yeah.
not sophisticated, they're not going to go far. And I understand that the torpedoes early on in the war, our torpedoes were terrible.
Yeah.
That you'd hit, and I mean, actually hit something and it wouldn't go off.
Yeah. Well, I don't know much about the propulsion system. So I know that the torpedoes were transferred to the repair ship, and those had a shop on that thing.
Okay.
Going through that, yeah, the early things. And
Now, during your time in Brisbane or wherever else you were in Australia, did we ever, to your knowledge, did we lose any boats?
I don't know. I think we had one of them that was lost. I'm not sure it was S-37 or something.
Okay.
I think it run aground or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, but not, as far as you know, not lost to enemy action.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Okay. So now you're in Australia for, you don't know, not sure how long, right? Before you go to Hawaii.
Well, we were in Australia, and we stopped in Bora Bora. We stopped in Bora Bora, which is outside of the Tahiti.
Right.
And we've been there for a while. And I think as we proceeded, we have to do some work on some of the submarines. And it's hard for one person to decide exactly what has to be done.
Sure.
Yeah, because that was all done in the between the captains and the execs and so forth, what has to be done. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, as far as your particular responsibility is just the electrical systems.
Yeah.
You don't have, you're not repairing holes in the boat or anything.
No.
Somebody else on your ship's doing that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many guys would work with you in the electrical part of the thing? Do you remember how many guys were in your?
Well, the shop had about 8 or 10 people.
Okay.
The electric shop. So everything that was repaired, they had telephones come in and be repaired. They had their motor come out, and they had to recut the commentators. So different people did different things.
Okay.
A lot of times it was just get the moisture out of the motor to make it groundless. We used to heat that thing and dip it into glycol and heat it and try to get rid of the motor.
So what was the biggest problem that you ran into with the electrical systems on the S boats? What was the consistent? I mean, there must have been a bunch of problems, but what was the one that kept coming up all the time?
I don't know what could I tell you that.
I mean, would salt water, I assume, would get in there?
But submarines always got humidity.
Yeah, okay.
It's damp. And when you have dampness, it gets into the atmosphere.
Yeah, you're gonna get the condensation and, yeah, wow.
And,
So that was a big problem.
because your main motor for 4 or 5, let me see, several thousand horsepower. It's a big motor. It's a compound motor, electric motor. Now that motor is used as a generator, and it's also used as a motor, like on a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
You use it to generate electricity under one condition, and you change the propulsion system, and you make it a motor.
Right. But these S boats, along with the later submarines, would have to surface to recharge these batteries, right?
Well, when they're running on the surface, you're running it as a propulsion system as well as charge the batteries. Yeah.
Okay. But when you're underwater, you can't.
Underwater,
Yeah.
you use a motor.
Right. Now, what would be how long could you go? I know I'm asking all kinds of technical things here, but I'm interested. How long could an S boat, in theory, as opposed to in practice, how long could it run submerged before it had to surface to recharge?
Well, there's several things you got to consider. How fast you're going to go, more electricity you use, and more battery power. Did you know today everything's on batteries?
Okay.
In submarines, it's lead acid storage battery, just like a big car battery.
Okay.
So the faster you want to go, the more juice it is. So you have to be very conservative.
Yeah.
So when you're into patrolling, it's a different ballgame.
Yeah.
You're going to try to surface as much as you can.
Which is going to be pretty much at night, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So would you say, I know we're jumping ahead here, so what would have, later in the war you're working on the more sophisticated submarines that aren't S boats. I guess Gato was the big one, there were others. What was the major difference between the later boats, say like the Gato class, which was the main one, versus the S boats? What was us?
Well, I'd say they're bigger, and they have the facilities more modernized. You can't compare that with today's nuclear stuff.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
But in them days, it was a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're faster, and their hulls are probably stronger.
Bigger crew.
Yeah.
Roll
But
in.
even at that, if you get submerged and the depth charters are looking for you, they can tear you up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now he shows 55 boats that went down in World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I think it was about a fifth of the force. Yeah. About 20% of the force in the Pacific anyway that we lost. Which is better than what the Germans lost in the Atlantic. I mean, my God, they lost.
One thing that I learned I just finished reading about the German submarines. the German crews were very young.
Yeah, for the
They
most
just
part.
finished the book. The captain was only 24 years old.
Hmm. They were young, yeah.
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 Very young officers. Yeah.
As a result of your work on the S boats and the later models, you knew these ships pretty well. I mean, you knew these boats pretty well. I mean, you knew their strengths and weaknesses, at least the electronic strengths and weaknesses of these
Well,
boats.
I didn't do much electronic work on the boat itself.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, from the stuff that they took off to
Yeah.
put in your shop, you must have realized, you must have seen consistently, you know, after looking at a lot of these things, boy, this is a real weakness in this model. I mean, this is a real, you know, problem.
If that says the game, I don't know whether I looked at the analysis of it, but
Right.
I'm not sure somebody did.
Okay. Okay.
Because they've been around.
Yeah. Well, I guess a lot of the S boats you guys were working on have been around a while, and they were.
And not only that, maybe some of the R boats, for example, maybe they put some of those back in commission.
So the R boats pre.
Our boat yeah.
So they were
they're
even-
the ones built in the 20s.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So they were still operating during when the war broke out.
I think they were.
Okay.
I think some of them were. Yeah.
Now, so the S boats alphabetically and otherwise succeed the R boats.
Yeah, that's what-
And the S boats are pretty much what 1930s models submarines.
It's boats. I would say late 20s, 30s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you head back to Hawaii after a period of time in Brisbane.
Yeah, we served our time in Brisbane, and then we went back to Hawaii, and also in Pearl Harbor we also attended the boats.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now at that point, this is
And we were also doing some remodeling on the ship itself.
on your ship.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what is this? Late 42, early 43.
Probably so. Yeah.
Now are
Then
you?
we went back to Australia. We went to Perth, Australia.
Okay, you're on the West Coast then.
Fremantle.
Okay. Okay.
So that's where they shifted the most of the fleet.
Okay.
As a result of the war in the Pacific. It was more efficient to get to the areas where they could get better and faster.
Yeah, you're closer to the combat zone than you are if you're in Pearl Harbor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Now, did you ever see? I know you're U.S. Navy, but did you ever see any of the British or Dutch submarines?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
I don't know whether they were out there or not.
I know they were out there, but I mean, I don't know if they came in and had also worked Fremantle or what. I don't know.
Fremantle, Perth. No
Okay.
idea.
Huh.
Now, when I was in Fremantle, Perth, I had a very good job. I was a projectionist
Oh.
on the Griffin.
Okay.
Every day, my job was to see the executive officer and say, "Here's the number of the movies, and what do you want to see tonight?" And we had Griffin had a 35 millimeter projection room, just like they would in the theaters,
Uh-huh.
all run by carbon lights and so forth.
So would you guys see the movies not on deck but inside?
No, we have weather's very, very nice. You have put a screen outside between these things. It's
Okay.
outside movies.
Okay.
The projectionist is in this little booth.
Okay, so you're projecting from inside to the screen
You know,
outside.
Yeah.
Oh,
So these
okay.
people were sitting outside, and a great big screen that the deckhands would put up
Okay.
every evening.
So what were some of the movies you guys saw? You must remember.
I don't know much about the movies,
Okay.
but it was 35 millimeters, and I used to go to Fremantle and Perth to the movie exchange commercial.
Okay.
This is not military. And exchange movies, we had to pay rent on all those things.
Uh-huh.
Until I had a list of the movies that were available,
Uh-huh.
and tell the exec, "What do you want to see tonight, sir?" Okay, get the vehicle, run me over there,
Okay.
and I'd turn the old film in,
Right.
pick up new film.
Okay.
It's 35 millimeter film, just like they use in the theaters.
Okay. Wow. Huh.
That was every day. And I got the job because I was a good projectionist.
Okay.
They was showing a movie one time, and the guy didn't make the turn, and the light was so strong it burned the film. And the skipper saw that. You just lost your job. One thing about the submarine forces, you can only make one mistake, next one you don't have a job.
Yeah.
There's no perfection is it. Anything you do, because that's the culture you're raised with. Because you know, in a submarine, everybody has a job, and it has to be done perfectly.
Yeah, or you're dead. I
That's
mean,
it. I don't care whether you're a recruit or not,
yeah.
but they preach that.
Well, I think all the submarine forces, I mean, ours anyway, the U.S. was all volunteer, right? I mean, nobody was drafted into the submarine. Yeah.
And you have to have a separate personnel to be yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how they could do. I'm sure you have too. Been on board some of those World War II submarines and museums. I don't know how they did that. I really don't know. I'm not claustrophobic, but there's no way.
I never did. Some of the bunks on the submarines you roll over a greasy torpedo to get in your bed.
Right. Now, I'd also heard, and I've talked to some guys about what they called hot bunking, you know, so you'd have bunks for maybe only half the crew or a third of the crew, and then you'd rotate, you know, when you were on duty. Oh, that must have been a joy as well. And of course, you don't get a shower, but what, once a week or something?
I doubt you'd get that.
Yeah, so must have been pretty ripe by the end of a...
Especially when you're in the traffic.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I mean... You come back from a patrol, they probably have to fumigate the boat, right?
Well, one thing to come out of the patrol, the first thing they want to do is give you a good meal, milk and so forth and so on, something to eat.
Yeah.
And then next thing you're packing your gear up and you're going to R&R.
Yeah.
And the submarines there for the people who had job orders and go police the thing up and get things ready to go again.
Yeah. Wow. Now, while you were in Fremantle, Perth, I'm sure you must have, and you were there for quite a while?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
So you must have seen some of the same boats again and again and again.
Yeah.
Did any of them...
Yeah. And we had, at that time, I think we had 2 or 3 submarine repair ships.
Okay.
The Griffin there. The repair ships used to go along and they'd change. For example, we had a couple of... We were the first ones. The Griffin was the first one in Brisbane. And then later on they had Bushnell and another would come in. And then the first one that came in, it's going back to Pearl Harbor for repairs and so forth.
Okay, yeah.
The same way we had.
So you're rotating your subtenders. Okay. Okay. Now, when you were out there, like I said, I don't know if the same subs would have been assigned to the same subtender all the time, so
I don't think so.
Okay, so whatever came in, you guys would get. Did you ever notice, I mean, I'm sure they must have told you, or you must have found out that some of the subs that you'd worked on didn't ever come back?
I don't, I'm aware of that, yeah, but I don't know exactly how that was put out in the news, news.
Yeah, well, probably be.
Every now and then used to have a little newspaper to put out, yeah.
I mean, I assume to some extent it would have been a secret. You don't want the enemy to find out what if they, that we lost a boat or whatever. Yeah. So, when you were in the Fremantle, Perth, how long were you there? Do you remember?
I don't know. I'd say we probably was there for over 8 or 9 months. Maybe, maybe longer.
So now, when you got liberty or shore leave or whatever, what would you do?
Well, we had more liberties in Fremantle, Perth. We could go to town.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't think we had curfew or not. I forget about that.
Yeah, it's pretty far south. I doubt the Japanese,
Yeah.
any planes could probably, no Japanese planes could have reached Perth.
I don't remember having any alerts
Okay.
in the Perth area. Yeah.
Okay. So what would you guys do? Just drink and make a nuisance of yourselves, or what would you do in Perth?
I know we had beer there, and I used to get to town quite a bit, exchanging my film and so forth.
Right.
And I also worked on the Admiral's staff,
Oh.
so a lot of times I went over to his house with other people to do certain work for the Admiral.
I guess electrical stuff, huh?
To do some electrical thing. And I remember one time they had the Admiral, one of the, Admiral Christie was his name. They wanted to show a movie, Dumbo with the big ears, elephant movie.
Okay.
and I had remove projectors from the ship that I was on and take over to his house and show it in his house. And we had some portable projectors, 35 millimeter portable projectors, and the power is different and the frequency is different, so I had to go ahead and get the
Oh, right, yeah,
changes
yeah,
and so forth and so
right,
on.
right.
And not only that, the theater was showing a movie in town, so I had to get someone to take the movie from the theater when it was played and bring it over to the Admiral's house to play it and go back.
Oh.
And so, but it turned out good.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So now, during your time in the Navy, between when you went in January '41 and the end of the war, I don't want to take it past there yet. Did you get promotions at all? What?
Well, I was a fast burner.
Okay.
First of all, I learned my electricity in high school. So when I went on board a ship, I was ahead of everybody else. So my first thing is, I met a chief on the Griffin, a young chief, and he was remodeling his office. And I made a communication with him. I said, you know, I know all about this electric stuff. He was working in his little lab, getting it all painted and so forth. So I went in there and helped him one time. He was scraping, sanding the wooden counters.
Mm-hmm.
I told him, I said, you know, my dad used to do that, but he didn't sandpaper it. He used glass and scraped it.
Hmm.
So I showed him that. Oh, he said, good.
Mm-hmm.
The chief was really impressed.
Oh.
So I talked to him about that, and he's the guy who got me started on examinations. He got a third-class petty officer book. He said, you fill this out, and when the examination comes up, you take the exams. That's when I passed the exam. And the guys working in the electrical gang failed it.
Uh-huh.
So the next day, I was an electrician.
Okay.
And every time a promotion come up, I was promoted. I was on the ball. I was a movie operator. I worked for instruments on the ship, and I was a leader. I didn't go out here and I know how to work. As I became a petty officer, I knew that I could not do everything myself.
Yeah.
And I had to teach younger guys to do things. So throughout my career, I always moved ahead.
Well, that's good. Uh-huh.
And I had good jobs, and you get promoted with good jobs.
Now, while you were in Fremantle, Perth, did you see? Did you have any interesting things that happened to you, or things that you saw that were unusual that stick in your mind?
Yeah. Well, I did run into some people in town. We went to dances in town, and we had in Perth, Australia, a lot of immigrants who come out of Europe.
Okay.
Whenever Hitler made his surge.
So they were new there, maybe from the late '30s or whatever, right?
No. That was whenever Hitler started to move into Europe.
Oh, I see.
A
Okay.
lot of those people immigrated out of there.
They got out. Okay.
And they were assigned to some. They worked in the farms, had food in Australia and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So they're part of the Australian economy at that time in that area.
Okay.
So I run into some of those. And
Now, when this is sort of backtracking a little bit, but at home, when you were growing up, did your mother or your father speak Serbian or Croatian?
yeah, we spoke Croatian in the house.
Okay.
And I was pretty good at it myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I was curious about that. I should have asked that earlier, but I didn't.
And it brings up a point. We had those same situations here in Allentown, Pennsylvania. When we first moved here, we had Italian clubs, Australian clubs, this Russian club, not Russian club, but other ethnics too. And it was a necessity. It was a Polish club.
Okay.
Because that was a point where the immigrants who could not speak English could network
Sure.
and know where to go for jobs.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Because all those immigrants worked hard. And you had plenty of jobs here in the Allentown area.
Yeah.
But you had to know networking to find them.
Sure. Of course. Yeah. It's amazing how many. I think I was mentioning to you on the phone how many World War II veterans I've found in the Allentown area. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you remember when you finally left Fremantle, Perth? I assume the war was still going on.
I don't remember the exact dates, but I do know on our departure, I think we stopped at Biak, which is north of New Guinea, right on the equator,
Mm-hmm.
and we stayed there for maybe 2 months.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, what was that like?
Well, it was hot.
Probably humid and yeah.
Quite humid. And I remember I used to get involved with the getting rid of the trash and so forth,
Lucky you.
which is a bad thing. I just think about it now. They used to go out to sea and dump it, and they'd meet the natives out there, New Guinea people, and they would go ahead and pick those things up. A lot of it was meat and so forth. It didn't sink right away.
Right.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, we had a little recreation center, so some pontoons for a rec center there. Yeah. And we stayed there, I think, long enough to wait for the invasion up at Leyte. Because from there we went up to Leyte,
Oh, okay.
the first invasion of the Philippines.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of ships involved in that.
So were you directly or indirectly involved in the Leyte operation?
Yeah. Well, we were not the first force, but we did go up there, and we stayed there for a while before we proceeded further up north to Manila.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So you went up to Luzon after Leyte then?
yeah, Leyte, yeah.
Okay.
And from there we moved up to Subic Bay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long were you in the Philippines altogether? Do you remember?
I left the Philippines in the 45. I got a little note in there.
So were you there when the war ended in the
Yes, I was
Philippines?
there when the war.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I got to the Subic Bay, there was still fireworks in Manila and everything else.
Celebrating the...
Yeah. No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because the Battle of Manila was the largest urban combat in the Pacific
Yeah.
in the war. That was February, March 45.
Yeah.
So were you in the area when that was happening?
It
then?
was at Subic Bay, yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Then we had a CB battalion at New Subic Bay, and the ship that I was on sent me over there to be an electrician. They set up a electrical stuff for a recreation center for them.
Okay.
And I bring it up a little note there I got. Yeah.
Now, was at any point when you were in the Philippines, especially, that's when you're gonna, were you ever attacked by the Japanese? Was there ever any danger of air attack or anything like that?
There was some action by Japanese who was underwater, damaging a few aircraft or something.
Okay.
PBYs.
Okay.
Yeah, but not exactly where we were, but in the area. Yeah.
Now, had you guys on the subtender been trained? I mean, did you have any defensive arms on board your ship, like a 5-inch gun or 20 millimeters?
Submarine repairs. Yeah.
Okay, so were you guys trained on any of those? Were you personally trained on any of those things?
I personally wasn't. No.
Okay. So would you have like a 5-inch, 40 millimeter, 20 millimeter mount?
Probably 3-inch.
3-inch. Okay. Okay. Pretty much for anti-aircraft purposes, then.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have just one of these on board the ship? What do you remember?
Oh, I remember that.
What was, I never asked you, what was the size, the general, I mean, it must have varied, but what was the standard size of the crew on board the Griffin? Do you remember that?
I don't know exactly.
Are we talking hundreds of guys?
I'd say a couple hundred at
Okay.
least, yeah.
Okay, so how big was it? I mean, roughly, how long a ship was it?
I'd say close to 500 feet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty big.
Yeah. Okay. So you were in Subic Bay then when the war ended, when you heard about it?
Yeah.
So how did you hear about, well, first of all, let me backtrack a little bit. Do you remember hearing news about Roosevelt's passing when he died in April? Do you remember hearing about that or not?
That's what's later, actually.
That's April.
Yeah,
It's April 12th.
Roosevelt died in
April 45.
45.
Yeah.
April 45. Yeah.
So do you remember hearing about that or not?
I was thinking April 45. I don't know whether we used to get a newspaper.
Okay, but nothing over the PA system or anything. Did you hear about the end of the war in Europe? I mean, you must have heard about
Oh, yeah,
that.
yeah.
But of course, that's not affecting you at all because the war's still going on in the Pacific. But
Yeah, the war in Europe was signed in
early May,
Yeah,
45.
yeah.
When did you hear and how did you hear? You must have heard and must remember about the atomic bombings.
Yes, actually did. Yeah.
And so, what did you think? I mean, did you? I mean, of course, and it's a while before the Japanese surrender after the bombings. But when you heard about that, if you remember, did you think, "Wow, this is it. This is probably going to be the end of the war," or did you not think about that?
I don't think we knew about it.
Okay. But you certainly when.
But after the war, I was well familiar with it.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
And interestingly, one of the it's not a problem. One of the issues you have when you do these interviews, and one of the things I always tell the students is, listen to this interview carefully because a lot of the stuff he's going to tell you are things he actually remembers and experienced during the war. But also be careful because if he's done any reading about the war after the war, right, he's going to incorporate that as part of his collective memory.
I do a lot of reading. Yeah.
So that's what I tell him. I said, when I show these in class, I'll say, how much of this could he have known at the time versus how much did he learn afterwards that he's making part of his memory?
Well, I learned quite a bit afterwards.
Yeah.
Because you're limited to what you get.
Oh, sure.
And
I mean,
what
of course.
What means you have of finding out.
Sure, of course. But so when you heard about VJ Day, how did you hear about it, and what were your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, let me see. VJ Day, it was late at 8:45, right?
Yeah. Well, they signed on the Missouri on September 2nd.
Well, no, I was already, the ship I was on already was back in the States.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I was in transition
Okay.
for my next assignment, just about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were going to be taken off the Griffin and put somewhere else?
Whenever the ship came into California, that was it. It's over for.
Okay. So, but the only time you went.
The ship was in reserve. The whole crew was relieved.
Okay. But the only time you went back to the U.S. during the course of the war was when that final trip. You didn't go back for repairs or something like that. Okay. So you never got further east in the Pacific during the war than Pearl Harbor.
Midway.
Okay.
Midway Island.
Okay.
I think Midway Island was our last stop on our way back to the States.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went from Philippines to Midway and then.
We went from the Lady up to Subic Bay.
Okay.
I think we got word to Subic Bay on the grid. I got it in my notes there. They told us the war's over.
Oh, okay.
And they turned around and went back to the States
Okay.
and put the ship out of commission.
Okay. Did they eventually scrap it or use it for target
It went
practice?
into reserve.
Okay.
Who knows what happened to it?
Okay. So you don't know what happened to it after that?
There's more at that time they had a number of new submarine repair ships in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was outdated
Yeah.
at a certain point.
The old ones were like Bushnell and some of those. Holland was the first submarine repair ship, a very small one.
Okay.
But as the war escalated, you had more of them.
Sure.
Bigger ships,
Sure.
bigger submarines and so forth.
Right. Now, so when were you you went in reserves after the war.
Yeah.
So.
I come back to the States, and I got tied up with the Prince Eugen.
Oh, tell us about that.
Is an electrician.
So tell us how did we acquire the Prince Eugen and tell us a little bit
Prince
about it.
Eugen is in Brest, France, all through the war.
Okay, this is after the
There must
Bismarck disaster, right?
Yes, that's right. So they must have had some kind of agreement with whoever was in charge, and the Prince Eugen come to the United States with complete German crew, including the captain, back to the United States, and he landed in Philadelphia. And as we progressed from Philadelphia, the crews were sent back to Germany, most of them, as they didn't need it. And they had a big fair here in Philadelphia where they had a lot of the German people come down and brought supplies for them to take back to Germany. Because Germany's all busted up and didn't have nothing to eat, nothing to wear. So the German people got together and visited the ships, and they had big bags and everything else. A lot of them guys went back to Germany. So now we're looking at a smaller crew to take this over to the
Pretty much a skeleton crew then to take
yeah,
it.
that's right. So as we progressed down the coast and go through the Panama Canal, I got memorabilia from the Germans.
Wow.
I was an electrician, so I had to learn about Germans running the ship and so forth.
Now, did you have a German?
German officers were very, very knowledgeable, very smart guys.
Did you have a German counterpart you worked with on the?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Two of them, yeah.
Okay.
Both of them were younger officers.
Okay.
And they spoke good English, and they could teach me what I had to know.
Okay. So you go through the canal.
I went to the canal.
Again, so that's your second time through the canal, right?
Yeah.
Only going east-west. You've never been to the canal west-east, right? It's always been east-west.
I was always going from the
Caribbean to
northern to the southern, whatever it is. Canals are straight.
right. So then, did you knew at that point? I guess everybody knew that this ship was going to be used for target practice.
That's
basically?
correct. Yeah. And as we progressed, we got rid of as we moved toward the Pacific, we got rid of most of the officers, except just a few. And they had since it was going to be a target ship, everything that had to be abandoned. And I had a lot of German memorabilia, things that they would throw over the side. You could take it. How you going to carry it?
Yeah, right.
But I had a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
And then as we go, we got as far as Hawaii, and they pulled me off of that ship to go to another assignment, because now, for some reason, the atomic thing was delayed.
Okay.
Now, from what I understand, they had a little problem there at Bikini. It was an above ground explosion, and a lot of the American crews didn't realize that they would have so much fallout whenever that bomb was exploded. Now, the Prince of Eugen did not sink. The Nevada was a target ship, and they had different rings of it. And the Navy crews, the guys were picking up these residue from the explosion. They were miles away. That was all radioactive.
And they didn't understand that at the time. Yeah.
Some people suffered from that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So anyway.
Wow. So how were you impressed with the with what you saw on the Prince Eugen? Did it? I mean.
Yes, I was. I'm very impressed. They're very, very high tech. Absolutely.
Okay.
When a ship came to Philadelphia, we removed some of the fire control stuff, and we sent it to Washington D.C. to the place where I went to school there.
Okay.
Electronics school. When I went to electronics school later on, here's the stuff that we sent out to them.
Well.
They were very high tech on set.
Okay.
It was very, very high tech. They were on their projectors, the targets, they were taking a picture of the hood. Every time that gun fired, they could take a picture of the target.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm very impressed. Yeah.
Huh.
And I'm also impressed with the training that the officers had, German officers. They were very, very bright, very bright. Most of them speak English. And on our way through the Panama Canal, the engineering officer says, it had intelligence. They told me where they were. They had spies down there.
Oh sure, yeah.
And while we were in Panama, some of the Germans tried to escape and go down South America.
Okay.
And
So
what they did one evening, they took the garbage, took it down the end of the pier, and you go and dump it. In the meantime, they had it all fixed up. They go lose power on the Prince William.
Mm-hmm.
No electricity. So they're going to try to escape and go to South America.
How did that work out?
It did work out too good.
Okay.
Yeah, they caught them before they went too far.
Well.
But see, there's a lot of influence in South America.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, there was that whole story about the Odessa file and the rat line from Germany to Italy to Argentina and places like that. Yeah.
Because later on, it was, when I was in the Air Force, I was in South America.
Okay.
I was in all of the countries, yeah. A lot of the Germans. And you see, part of South America, some of the stuff you remind you of the United States. You know, a lot of the immigrants and so forth.
So now you're still in the Navy at that point during the bikini test. When do you leave the Navy and go into the Air Force? It's got to be after 47, of course.
Well, in 47, I was taken off of the job I was on. I went to Bar Harbor, Maine, on another job.
Okay.
The Bar Harbor, Maine job, it was back in 47 or whatever it is. They had water shortage from drought. So they didn't have enough water to run the turbines, run the electrical system. So the Navy took 2 destroyer escorts, and we put them in South Portland, and we had a big transformer there, and we were going to furnish electricity to South Portland, and South Portland is going to take the electricity they generate and send it up to Bar Harbor for running the power systems. So I was involved with that program for the whole year, 9 months actually.
Okay.
So.
So when do you finally go out of the Navy, get out of the Navy? Well, you said, I think it was 1950, I think.
1950 reserves, yeah.
Right. And then, of course, Korea starts up in June. What happens to you?
Well, no, I just bought a house in North Philadelphia. My wife was a beautician, so she had a beauty shop. So I just come off of a year of sea duty, and it was on like terminal leave, but it was in the reserve. So whenever the Korean War started, the first thing I got the first week the war was on, I get a recall letter telling me that I'm going to be assigned to a destroyer out of San Diego and so forth and so on. I was still didn't get recalled yet. They told me all about it. So I told my wife about it. She said, "You know what? You've been away for a whole year, and I'm be here by myself." So I decided, well, you know, my wife's thinking for me. So I thought, well, I could get out of the Navy and go into the Air Force, because the Air Force was just new.
Yeah, right.
And they wanted petty officers and so forth who had experience.
So okay, so what becomes the Air Force in 47, which was the Army Air Corps during the war.
Yeah.
So basically what they do is they pilfer highly rated officers and enlisted men from the other services to come over to them, right?
That's right.
Okay.
They needed experience.
Okay. Now, were they offering you something you couldn't resist? I mean, were they offering you?
Yeah, but I had a tough decision, because I was chief of Navy for 5 years. Now here I'm going to give this up and be a tech sergeant.
Right.
Now I knew as a tech sergeant, all the previous time and grade is going to be good for promotion. So I said, well, that's an advantage. So that's what I do. I got out of the reserve somehow, and I joined the Air Force as a tech sergeant. So now I'm a tech sergeant.
But you're doing the same thing in the Air Force, basically. Electronic stuff as you would do.
Electronic communication, that's right.
Okay.
So I could go to Fort Mount. They want to reclassify me. Well, I don't want to get reclassified because I got a good lot of experience in the Navy. So I said, well, I'll just take a chance here, which was a good thing. So they say, well, I want to send you to Fort Monmouth because you got a lot of experience. You go to learn the Navy's Air Force system. Well, I'm part of it. They're looking for my knowledge to make the system work.
Sure. Yeah.
So I was at Fort Monmouth Signal School, and every time you take a course, if you pass it, if you're in the top 2 or 3%, you go to the next thing. So I was there for 9 months in the Army. Well, the Army likes to maneuver on weekends. I like to go home.
Yeah.
So anyway, it turned out good. I was assigned to Bolling Air Force Base, and I went to Bolling Air Force Base, and I looked around, all these guys as master sergeants who are reserve navigators and so forth and so on in the Air Force waiting for the quitting time. They'll have reserve commissions and so forth who will retire at his rank, but they all hold a listed career field. So the guy said, you know what you ought to do? Go to Andrews and see what you can find out. I go to Andrews Air Force Base. Great. All kind of vacancies. Next thing you do, I go up there. And I'm part of the team that's going to remake Andrews now. Washington National. Moving everything from Washington National up to Andrews. We're going to build a big air base there. So I fell in perfectly. I got promoted right away. And then I was a warrant officer. Promotion and so forth. And
Now, with the Korean War, did the Air Force ever say, we're going to send you to Korea, or did they keep...
no, the Korean War, they're going to send me a destroyer in the Pacific.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, but when you made the switch to the Air Force, the Korean War was still going on, right?
Absolutely.
So were they going to ever, did they threaten to say, or threaten? Did they say, we're going to be sending you to the Far East again, or?
No, what they sent me, when I became at Andrews Air Force Base, I become part of the Inspector General team.
Okay.
I was a master sergeant. So then I was a warrant officer down there. So being a communications specialist, I went to Iceland with the Inspector General team.
Okay. So where were you in Iceland?
I was there for a whole year.
But were you in Reykjavik, or?
Year and a day. So I come back, and 6 months later, they go say, hey, we're going to send you up there to correct the deficiencies in this IG report you sent down. Oh yeah. So I go back to Iceland for 1 year and a day, putting in a telephone exchange.
What did you think of Iceland? What was your impression of it?
Well, first of all, the job is hard, because up there in the wintertime it's a lot of wind and cold, not a lot of snow.
And dark all the time.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
At that time we were building the runways up, and we was doing this and that. We were trying to put in a telephone exchange. We had a room, that was all done. But to put in the cable systems and so forth, it was all rock. You had to blast holes, and it was really hard work. Yeah.
So while you were in Iceland, and what year was this?
56 or 57.
Okay, so Bob Hope visited, and so there's a picture of you with Bob Hope, right? I see you're standing right next to him. You're standing right to his left. And who's that lady there? Is that one of the entertainers?
That was part of Bob Hope's crew.
Okay, and then he autographed this for you. Wow, that's great. So what was he like? I mean, did you talk to him?
Well, the whole thing is, I don't want to say derogatory things about it, but it all come about. We had a service club that was just completed.
Right.
And his advanced team came up, and there was nothing in the service club except space.
Okay.
No chairs, no nothing. So Bob Hope comes up, and he's very, very disturbed because his advanced people did not find anything. So now they have to have a PA system. Well, I was putting in a PA system to the officers club, and they knew that, and they tried to get me to go ahead and use that. I said, I will not use that unless I get the permission of the officers who's in charge and the colonel of the base. Okay. So anyway, without me putting in a PA system for Bob Hope,
Okay.
this went off. Now, I had the control room set up in his dressing room. And I had earphones on, I had all the microphones in the audience, and I had the microphones for him, and everything, real professional thing. after every act, the people would come out and say, "Oh, Mr. Hope, that was really a great act," and so forth and so on. And I'm in his dressing room with my earphones and stuff on. So I just keep my mouth shut, do my job. It disturbed him.
Huh.
He said, "Come on out here and get a picture with me."
Okay.
Yeah. So I did that.
Well.
So in this picture here, you see a girl there she had a low-cut dress.
Yeah. She's right
So
next
I'm
to
sort
him.
of looking down. So they make a joke out of it. I said, "Okay, I'll close my eyes and take a picture." Oh. So that's happened.
Well.
So after that, Bob Hope was very disturbed. He said, "Get out here and get a picture with me." And I did that. So anyway, he said, "You got a piece of paper and a pencil?" I said, "Yes." So he wrote a note. "You did a good job for me anytime you need this."
That's great. How many days was he there? I mean, how long was he?
He was only there for several days.
Okay.
His advance man set everything up.
Okay.
He comes in, goes through his act. This is the USO thing.
Right. Yeah. Well.
But without me, it would never have happened.
Okay.
No way.
Maybe that should have sent you off into show business or something, right?
He offered me a job anytime.
Really?
Yeah, I'd come out to Hollywood.
Wow. You didn't take him up on it.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I wouldn't do that.
That's great. That's great. So you're in Iceland a year and a day. Were you in Reykjavik or where were you outside?
The airfield at Keflavik.
Okay.
Keflavik, yeah. We had a switchboard there. That's where the main airport was. And they were building up the runways and making them wider and longer for B-5 to do reflexes.
Okay.
That's why we're there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the base was under British control during World War II, and we came in as tenants.
Okay.
And we had to live in Quonset huts, and we had some new barracks there and so forth.
Yeah, wasn't that the deal that we made where we'd give them 50 destroyers and then they'd give us...
The 15 destroyer was part of the World War II rehab for the British.
Right, and then in return we got a base in Iceland from...
You're going to write about them. We got bases for Bermuda, Iceland, and a few other places. Yeah. You're good on your history.
So then after this is 50, you said 56, 57, somewhere in there?
Yeah.
So where do you go after that? Where did you...
I get reassigned to McGuire Air Force Base, New Jersey.
Okay. Was that sort of a letdown for you or a good thing for you? Or?
They offered me to go back to Washington, D.C. As part of the crew that's building up Andrews Air Force Base.
Right.
But I was getting to the end of my career field.
Okay.
And so I go back there. Yeah.
So when did you then retire from the Air Force?
Well, I retired from the Air Force. We had the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Okay, 62.
After the Cuban Missile Crisis, I think I retired.
Okay, so that was October. That was
61.
62.
61 or 62.
62.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you had the Bay of Pigs and then the
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think they held me for that. They wouldn't discharge me. In other words, they held certain career fields.
Okay.
Because at that time they were moving a lot of troops down towards Florida and all this kind of stuff.
Right, in case we invaded Cuba, yeah.
So they were expecting things.
Yeah. Wow. So you got out then, and shortly after that?
Yes, I got out.
Early 63 or late?
Probably the early 60s, yeah.
Early 63 then, probably, huh?
62 maybe. Yeah.
Okay. So, did you get, so you'd been in then, between being in the Navy and January
I had been 20 years in
Okay.
of all time, yeah.
So then you got your PX and commissary privileges or BX, I guess.
I still have those, but
Okay.
I don't use it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess the Air Force goes, see, I'm an Army brat, so of course it's PX, not BX, but you guys have BXs, and so you have those privileges, right, but you don't use them? Where's the nearest?
Well, I have a small family.
Yeah.
My son's in California, he's never going to come here. Yeah, so, what do you say?
Yeah.
She got up there. Just take a look at that. right there in the window. Down. No.
Where? Oh, this?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a view from his house in California.
Wow. Wow, that's great.
Now that's
So that's why he's not.
Yeah.
That's why he's not coming back here. Of course, at the moment, I think there's a hurricane in California, and they recently
Well,
had.
he lives in Oakland, so he got good weather.
Okay, because I know there was this hurricane that hit, and then they had an earthquake, and it's just one thing after another. Okay, so you're out of the military then in late '62 or early '63. What did?
And I get a job somewhere as a tech rep for Philco.
Oh,
Somewhere
okay.
along the line in there. I don't know how long I worked for him.
Okay.
Yeah. And that washed out whenever the Philco was part of Ford.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Anyway, and then after that, I did something else. So I wound up being applying for a civil service job.
Okay, one of the GS jobs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you get government service job? Did you get one? I think you.
Yeah, I originally got it, and I got.
You think you got to GS 12, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't start GS12.
No, but I mean that's where you ended up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I was a part of the headquarters, 21st Air Force, command and control. So I did a lot of work for them in the exercises, maneuvers, reflexes, going to Germany and so forth.
Okay. Now, did you? I wanted to backtrack a little bit. So, when did you get married, and what was her name? And
When my marriage, I got married in 1947.
okay.
Yeah,
And how did you meet her?
yeah. Pardon?
How did you meet her?
I met her in Philadelphia.
Okay. And what was her name?
Her name was Irene. And the thing is, she worked for Easy Buzz during World War II,
Uh huh.
and she got oil poisoning, so she couldn't work in the production line.
Oh.
So she was a real fast burner in them days. She went to beauty school, and she had a beauty shop in Philadelphia.
Okay. And then you said you had a son. Did you have?
Yeah.
What's his name?
His name is Mark Rauzon. He's a graduate of Albright College.
Okay. And you said he was 70, right?
Yeah.
So that means he was
71, 50. He was born in 52.
okay. Yeah. So I'm just about a year older than he is.
And he's sort of like you.
Okay.
He was up in tour guide in Kotzebue, Alaska when he was in college. So he'd seen the ice build up around Kotzebue, how the Eskimos lived, and everything else, had walrus and so forth. So now he had pictures of that. So now he goes back 5 years ago. He's the last people to go out and visit that area.
Huh.
80 degrees, no ice,
Yeah. Well.
and so forth.
Yeah.
So now he was writing a book about that. And he also has another book about that. Yeah.
So he likes that part of the world.
Yeah, so he's working on that.
Okay. So now, so he lives in California now.
Yeah.
And he's, where does he live?
He lives in Oakland.
Oh, okay.
About Piedmont, yeah.
Okay.
He lives on top of the hill.
I can see that. I can see that, yeah. Now, what happened to your wife?
Well, my wife was, over the years, we've been married 60 years. She had a slight stroke.
Okay.
She died 8 years ago. And I took care of her right here.
Well,
She said, please don't put me in a nursing home.
yeah.
I said, I'll do
Yeah.
work with the doctors and so forth. You can stay right here until the day you pass away.
Wow.
Yeah, so, good woman.
And then you have your new friend.
Yeah.
That's
So,
good. Well, I wanted to ask you a couple other questions. Did you ever have did you stay in touch with any of the guys on your ship after the war?
Yeah.
Did you visit or write letters or things like that?
Well, I had a few ship reunions. But as you go, you have less and less people can make these reunions and so forth.
Yeah. Now, did you ever go back or want to go back to some of these areas where you served during the war to see what they were like?
I did go back to Hawaii. My son was worked for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife there, and he got cut under the Reagan administration. So he's going to University of Hawaii on his master's degree.
Okay.
And I did visit him there for
Okay.
several months and so forth.
Go to Pearl Harbor and all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Did you?
And we went to Kilauea.
Okay.
And Kilauea at that time was just starting to erupt,
Okay.
and it was still erupting today.
Yeah. Did you, at any point after the war, give talks about your experiences? I mean, to schools or public groups?
I didn't, and it seemed like I met so many people who know so little about anything.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I'm so surprised.
Yeah. So tell us about this map. The blue arrows indicate places you've been.
The blue arrows indicate places I've been, on a job or visiting.
Okay. And the silver ones are for
The silver one are
your son.
places that my son has been on a job or visited.
Okay. Okay. So all your visits to the Pacific, Central or Western Pacific, that was all during the war, and the only place you went back to post-war was to Hawaii. You didn't get further.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Now you said you also visited Croatia. So where were your parents, or where was your father from in Croatia? Do you know the name of the?
He was.
Do you know the name of the place, the town?
It's a small village. It's near the Hungarian border, but it's still part of Croatia.
Okay.
See, Croatia, the capital is. What is it?
It's Zagreb, I think, isn't it? Isn't it Zagreb?
Zagreb, yeah.
Yeah,
And the capital of Serbia is
Belgrade.
Belgrade,
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, of course, right after the war.
It was only Austria.
Exactly. And after the war, of course, Tito pulls us all together to make Yugoslavia. And when he dies, of course, the whole thing falls apart, and you end up with the various wars in the countries that you got. So, when did you go back? Do you remember?
My sister was very fluent in the Croatian language.
Okay.
And also in the dancing and the uniform, so forth. So we went back with her.
Oh, okay.
And
so wasn't this in the 90s sometime before?
Probably in the 90s, I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, when I went back there, I visited the village where he lived.
Were there any relatives there? Anybody who?
Well, there's second cousins there.
Okay.
And also I drank water from the well that he drank water from when he was a young guy.
Right. Okay. That's good.
And visited the cemeteries.
Now, did he ever, well, you said he died in his 60s. Did he ever make a return trip home to visit relatives?
Never did.
Okay. How about your mom? Did she ever make a return trip?
Never did, no.
Okay.
They were glad to get out of there.
Okay.
Because at that time, under the Austro-Hungarian Empire, it was not good living there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think my daddy was in the army, I think, for a while.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is, you had regional leaders.
Well,
In other words, although it was all under one empire, regional leaders would run what the hell you wanted.
Sure.
You take some of your food.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's always been, as they say, the Balkans has always been the powder keg of Europe, right? I mean, there's always something going on there.
Yeah.
Did you, let me think. I'm trying to think. Oh, I know, I wanted to ask you, and I can't remember if you answered this. So, did you ever give talks, lectures about your experiences at schools or universities or?
No, I never did. You know.
Now, is that because you didn't want to, or they didn't ask, or they didn't know to ask, or why didn't?
When I first moved here, I had a lot of military friends. And I also had a lot of friends. I was the secretary of the Polish American Citizens Society for about 10, 12 years.
Okay.
So I had a lot of foreigners I talked to.
Right.
They were more interested about it because they had a tough life.
Sure.
Some of these guys were young and they had to survive under the communist empire.
Yeah. Right.
And so forth. But they were more interested in geopolitics than some of the people that I had here.
Oh, sure.
But, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And my military friends, all of them that I had, they're all passed away.
Yeah. Well, that's the
Of course.
that's a recurring theme, and it's one of the other questions I always ask when I do these interviews: is do you know any other World War II veterans that I might interview? Do you know anyone?
I don't know. They're all gone. Every last single one. I really never had any hardships. You know, being on the ship
Yeah.
and working with, even though you're working with submarines, you don't have the hardships of being on patrol.
Sure.
If you look and see how many people died in there, 500,000, or whatever it is.
Right.
5,000. Got 50 some.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but as we talked about this on the phone when you first poo-hooed your service, and I didn't really do anything, and I pointed out to you, that without guys like you, or the logistics guys who brought in, or the guys who built the airfields, or the guys who repaired the stuff, or the guys who brought in the supply, the frontline guys can't fight.
Yeah.
They're dead in the water. So what you guys did was critically important.
And not really that, Steve, but when you read these history books, you sometimes wonder if the generals make the right decision.
Of course not. many of them.
They don't.
No, no, absolutely. No, they make. I mean, the number of. I mean, of course, we have the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, things like the Peleliu landings, completely unnecessary. Many would argue that MacArthur's going back to the Philippines, completely unnecessary. There were a lot of stuff like similar things going on in Europe that were not necessary.
I even looked at the planning of the D-Day operation in Europe. And good men lost. General Theodore Roosevelt lost 2 sons there.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that cemetery, and Roosevelt, the Teddy Roosevelt lost.
Yeah.
What was his name? I can't remember the son's name. He was a flyer in World War I, and he was killed.
Yeah.
And Teddy Roosevelt never recovered from that. He died in 1919. He was just devastated. But I know, because when you go to the cemetery above Omaha Beach, Teddy Roosevelt Jr., who was a assistant division commander, had died of a heart attack, and he'd received the Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
And they had buried his older brother, who'd been killed in World War I, had been buried somewhere else. They brought the two together, and they're now buried together in the same cemetery. And the brother was killed in World War I. Is the only World War I fatality sitting in that cemetery of 9,000 plus guys. So
I was used to go on maneuver into Greece.
Oh, okay.
On these reflexes and NATO operations.
Right.
You were in Greece, don't you?
Yeah, I go to Greece a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And we went to I had a big Flocati carpet.
Okay.
Right here.
Right.
And my stepsister or my daughter come over and said, "Well, take it off the floor here," because my wife's.
They are dirt. They are dirt magnets.
She went ahead and sold it after.
Oh no!
It was virgin wool.
Yeah.
Beautiful carpet.
Yeah.
And you know where we got it? It's at the Flocati carpet place in Greece.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We had some, and they're real dirt magnets. So I mean, they really do. With the long hair.
They're beautiful though. Yeah.
Now, when you were that picture you showed me of when you were the only civilian among this Turkish, Greek, I guess American thing, was that in Turkey or in Greece? Where was that taken?
It was in Greece.
Okay.
But see, they had a disagreement between the Turks and Greece.
Oh, they always have. They always have. Yeah, they're always having problems. Yeah, they've never liked each other. That goes back hundreds of years. So.
No, I was in Thessalonica.
Okay.
That's mentioned in the Bible.
Oh yeah, St. Paul spent time there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of these things, like same way with Ephesus.
Right. Okay. When you were stationed in Adana. Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
on a job someplace.
Right.
So I had a weekend off. So I said, "Let's go do something."
Yeah.
So I ran into a cab driver. He said, "You got to go to this Ephesus."
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
We got 4 or 5 guys. No, 4 people.
Yeah.
Rented the cab. Went out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
At that time, it was not a tourist attraction.
No. I remember. It's interesting you say that because my dad we were stationed in Turkey in the '60s, and '65 to '67, and that's when my first visit to Ephesus was, I think, in 1966, and I've been back a number of times. But yeah, no, in the '60s, nobody was going there. Nobody was going there. But now it's just you go now, and it's like
Yeah. And I brought I got a stone like this. I'm making a bookend out of it.
Okay.
I got from Ephesus.
Okay.
Now I'm not supposed to take that out of there. But when I was out there, the cab driver that says, "I'm gonna get you a souvenir." Okay, get me one.
Huh.
So it's about this big.
You have it still?
I still have it, and I'm making a bookend out of it.
Okay.
One side of it.
Huh. Okay. Well, so you like to travel? Do you still?
I don't like to travel anymore.
Okay.
All of my travels, I've done my traveling.
Okay.
I've seen what I wanted to see,
Okay.
and anymore it's a hassle for me to travel.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people your age.
Especially now that you can't, your mobility is bad and
Sure.
so forth.
Yeah. I understand. Well. Okay, you mentioned at a certain point, of course, you'd been in the Navy and the Air Force, briefly in the Army, you said?
I was in the Army for almost a year.
Okay.
After leaving the Navy, the Army sent me to Fort Monmouth to go to indoctrination school because I was now in the Air Force. So they wanted to get regulations. They wanted to get ex-servicemen in the military who had previous service in the Air Force because they're rewriting all the regulations and so forth. The Air Force is only 2 years old
Right.
and needed NCOs to go ahead and
Right.
do that.
Now, what about the Coast Guard? How did you end up in that?
The Coast Guard is a sort of a shadow. I went into Cleveland, Ohio, and applied for a job. That you have to belong to the Coast Guard. Now this was a merchant marine operation. So they said, okay, now you go to Baltimore and you get on this ship. How I was sworn into the Coast Guard, I have no idea. So I go to Baltimore and they don't know whether I'm supposed to inspect the ship or what I'm supposed to do. So they sent me to the quarters to talk to someone. When I walked into this quarters, I seen all these guys who were in the Coast Guard, not the Coast Guard, on the ship, half drunk, undressed, dressed in ratty clothes, and I said, I don't need to be no part of this.
That was the Coast Guard.
That was the Coast Guard.
Okay, we won't advertise this. Well,
Yeah. So I never met anybody who was going to tell me what job I was going to have in the Coast Guard.
okay. But you ended up with a ID card from him somehow, right?
Yeah.
Well,
But
okay.
if I was going to be part of the crew, I didn't like it.
Okay.
If I'd be part of the supervision somehow, being an inspector or something, I'd accept it.
Okay. I wanted to ask you another question, because in looking through some of the photographs, I noticed that at one point you guys had a pie eating contest on board the Griffin. Do you remember that? And were you part of that?
I remember it, but I know I was not a participant.
Okay.
Because I remember seeing guys with pies all over their face.
Okay. So what was the prize? Just the honor of winning?
I have no idea. We didn't have much to give as a prize.
Okay. Bet there were some sick people after that, right? Eating too much pie. Okay, go ahead.
When I was a crew member on the Prince Eugen as a electrician mate, this was donated to me by the two German officers who are electrical engineers who were instructing me on how to use machinery on the Prince Eugen before it was going to the repeating test.
And you said the initial blast didn't sink it, correct?
Yeah, well, the bikini, I did not witness it.
Okay.
In other words, the bikini test did not sink the Prince Eugen. It was, I think, in the second circle. Nevada was the
Okay.
26th.
There's one of the signatures, some of this, and there's some of the others. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much for showing that. That's really great. So let me thank you for taking the time to meet with me today and tell me your fascinating story. And of course, I want to thank you for your service in World War II and afterwards in the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Army, and the Air Force. I guess the only major branch of service we're missing is the Marines there. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, as you roll along in a career, you never know what's going to be in your way, or part of your effort to succeed.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I've always had to try to have a positive attitude and try to look at the future, not the past, and do the best you can, regardless of what the hell that is.
Yeah. That's a good attitude to have.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you for coming in here and straightening me out.